Hello, me lovelies. Well, just wait until we start getting some people in. So this is going to be a good discussion today, which we should all be talking about. Autism. So just let's get a few people in. Jax won't be with us today, unfortunately. So wait for a few people to say hello and then I'll start talking. We've got a few people that should be calling in. Hiya, Carol. First one, say hello. Yeah, now just mention this as well. There's been a lot of drama going on. This is about autism today. I'm not going to be answering or getting into discussion about any dramas that are going on YouTube at the moment. That can be for another day. Hiya, David. Yeah, I'll put the link here. Hiya, Podcast World. Hiya, CC. So if anyone wants to jump on. Now, I'm going to have to keep this to around about an hour long. But we'll be doing more. This will be the first for a few live streams on this will be the first few live streams on the subject because it's an important subject and I think it's also helpful to get away from when you get professionals talking about it all the time. And that's what I'm aiming for. People who actually either are on the spectrum. I've told people before, I'm high functioning autistic, and most people would never know that. But if you stick around me for a while, people have said to me, you start seeing the signals that something, is there. And of course, I'm an example that you could meet someone autistic and you wouldn't know. You'd never know they had autism. No, Paul couldn't because his son was ill and he had to take him to hospital. But we are arranging something. He's away at the moment on holiday, but we are arranging something. Evening method. So yeah, so you can meet someone that's got autism and you'd never know. And actually, you could have autism and never know because I was a very late diagnosis. See, in my day, they didn't really take the subject seriously back when I was younger. Thinking back, I can see now where there were warning signs and signals that there was something, some syndrome or something going on with me. It's had its positives and it's had its negatives. Yeah, Cal, for 13 years, I suppose many people with autism did lots of trying in autism called Including Spell. That was brilliant. Oh, indigo children, isn't that something spiritual or something? I can't remember. Someone said that I was an indigo child. I don't even know what it is, but I thought it was something like mystical and all that. Okay, Miss B. Yet, so how did it says with me? I think I've discussed this before, haven't I? It's showed itself. I'm having to think back now because until the diagnosis was made, I didn't know. I just thought that it was, not like other people. It was odd. That's the only way I could describe, because people kept on saying it could be odd. It's just I had me no OCD, nothing like that. But if I got involved in something or interested in something and I was pulled away from it, it could cause me harm. I'd really get wound up by getting pulled once my concentration was in on something. And when I concentrate on something, I concentrate really heavily and focused into a pinpoint on us. And also other things I could never get, and I'm still the same. I can't handle numbers. This is the oddest thing going. I always scored top marks in English language and English literature. I was always top of the class. But maths and physics or anything like that, no chance. But yet, work this one out. Work this out. Now, I've just told you I couldn't handle numbers. It's like if you read out a number to me, I have to write it down or I'll get it all back to front. I'll get it all mixed up. Now, yet, algebra, when I was doing algebra, I was outstripping everyone. Algebra just stank. I could do it. And it wasn't until many years later after I got the diagnosis, someone said, yeah, they said, because they said algebra is a sequence of patterns. They said more or less a sequence. I don't know how better to explain it. So they said it's not like adding, subtracting, and multiplication in the normal sense. They said you're actually going along and X, Y's and all this business. So I got that. That was strange how I could do that, but yet couldn't do maths in itself, the other things. If you'd say to me something like 50 add 20, I'd be sitting there staring and thinking, no, which one? I'd be getting all the numbers all back to front. But yeah, writing down algebra, I could get it. Odd. And it was also the English as well, how I was so high scoring in the English. And I never used to even. Art was another one. I'd be like that. We used to have to do especially technical drawing. I'd be looking out the window, bored to death. Absolutely bored stiff in technical drawing. And yeah, I'd be producing these amazing drawings, which the teacher said it was amazing I was doing them when I was looking out the window most of the time as I was doing them. And let's just look. But let's go. I saw them inside fire brigade. What you call it, engine, and on that it had 1 out of 100 people are autistic. I bet it's more. But you see, you don't always recognize it as being autism. I'd say people never guessed with me. They just thought that I had strange, quirky ways about me. Oh, we've got a special guest on. Paula. Hiya, Paula.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Oh,
Hello,
God.
how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm absolutely exhausted. I've been working in the garden all morning.
Oh, you do, Anne? You're always in the garden.
Well, I know I do, but it needs a lot of work. I let it go for a few years, about 3 years, and it's a lot of work now.
Well, do you know what? I'm hoping to get my my housing association actually phoned me today because I'm trying to get a house for a garden for my daughter. One's autistic, and they've kind of said, look, could you widen the area? And I'm like, do you know what? Give me a house anywhere as long as it's a garden to get it out.
Yeah, it is handy.
And that's my daughter's autistic. And I managed to get it out today, but within half an hour, it was like, can we go back home? I'm tired.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky. We've got not huge gardens, but they're big for what people get as gardens now. So you can have a little stroll in it. And it used to be great with the dogs because I'd let the dogs out in the morning and they'd have a little play or whatever to do, and then I'd take them for a walk. So we're going to be talking about your daughter and your experiences now, aren't we?
Yes, so and I don't know where this lovely man is because he messaged me and he's uppy nervous, and I says, listen, Anne is the best one to come on to and talk to, and it's getting these issues spread across. So until he comes on, that's what he is. But yeah, I want to speak about it because my daughter is 11.
Yeah.
And before I'd actually joined, I heard you talking about the number, the sequence, that like numerical.
Now, just wait a minute. You see here, someone's actually come on a serious subject. I'm going to snipe this to just show what sick people are on.
Oh my God, what they're saying.
I'm not even going to say it's got my name, right? A very offensive thing. And it's come on.
On a subject to this, and honestly.
And this is the sick people you get.
I know. Listen.
I'm just saying I'm going to snipe it as evidence so that people can see what I'm up against. There we go. They're gone.
Idiots, honestly.
Oh, yeah. But that I was waiting for that. I thought, surely no one's going to, but you always get one. And I know who it is. It's all these. Yeah. It's the same person doing all these and accounts. But go on then, carry on, Paul. Let's ignore.
Yeah, you were talking about your numerical. You were talking about, like, earlier on before I jumped on the live, you were talking about like numbers. Because that's when my daughter was in nursery. I'd asked her to get back a year, but because we were in Fife in Scotland, the way it worked with her birthday, it wasn't possible. So she went into primary 1, and within 2 weeks they turned around and says, there's something different with that lassie. And I went, thank you. And she went, she can say 1 to 10, but she can't put them in numerical order.
That's what I was like.
Yeah. And that's what the nursery had claimed that she could do. And she couldn't.
Yeah.
So that would have saved a lot of hassle. But are you autistic, or do you have those?
High functional autistic. In other words, for the majority of the time, you wouldn't know, but it's just it shows itself, as say, in the way I could pick up some subjects and just absorb them. I'm like a sponge with some. I don't even have to try to learn them, and information will stay in my head from years and years ago and never go out my head. But in other subjects, it's not like struggling. It's just my brain refuses to take it in. And I could tell that because in maths, you say, no, there's something, you say that there's something blocking it. There's something blocking it. I remember saying this, it's a block. It's a block. It's not that I can't remember. I said, I could literally physically feel all that I can. And Graham, I'll let you on now in a minute once I've said this. All that I can express it as is that, and it was like, I could actually imagine a square in my head and feel it, blocking it. That's how it sounds strange.
You know something? This is why I find you so interesting, always have, right? And this is why I want to pick your brain at some point, because you've had these things, and it's like, my daughter's 11 right now, but what the positivity I see when it comes to having an autistic child is seeing other adults of an older age.
Yeah.
Hi, Graham. Graham's very nervous. Graham's very nervous. And be gentle.
I will be. I will be.
She's lovely, Graham. She is. She's lovely.
I've watched a few times, so I'm all right. Plus, my son's inviting Anne, so we should be all right.
Well, I'm going to keep stum and give you the platform, Graham, to talk about your experience and what's going on with you.
Now, this is one of the things, the autism sounds get to me. Now, I'll just say this sounds really trigger
my
me.
daughter always said that when
Just let me say, Graham, what have you got YouTube open at the moment?
No, I've just got StreamYard open.
Because I'm getting
feedback. There's nothing on in my house. There must be something. Is there something in the background, Graham?
No, there's nothing on. Would it be better if I used a headset?
Yeah, if you could, because I'm getting feedback in my
Right, I'll go and get one. I'll come back on.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Thanks for that. See, that's one thing that is a trigger as well. And people used to think I was just being really... And I used to actually annoy myself with it. Certain noises will get me literally exploding. I've gone into
But the confusion in your head must have been...
I'll faint. I've fainted because of noises, and I'll go down. It's like if I hear a certain noise going past me, I'll literally go like that, go sideways, and I think I'm going to faint. I can literally hear this wave going right through my body, and it's like I'm going to faint. It's horrible. Oh, hey, we've got a special guest on. Now, what I'm going to do, Paula, I've got a lady called Joanna Wilkinson. She's got an important question to ask people. I'm just going to remove you for a second from...
Not a problem, sweetheart, not a problem.
Put you back in. Okay. Hiya, Joanne. So,
hi, I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Yeah, we can hear you fine. So I'll just introduce you to people in the chat. Joanne has got a request to make of people, and I'll let you introduce yourself and tell people this is very interesting. I hope people get involved in this.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So I'm Joanna Wilkinson, obviously. Just Joe really is fine. But basically, I'm a student. I'm also a mum of children with autism. So I am really closely linked to the topic, which I know you're talking about tonight. My background really is I studied at undergrad level in special educational needs. And from that, I did some research and got quite interested in cyberbullying and anything to do with special needs. And then I decided to continue my studies and do a master's level, which is in psychology, to try and progress in that why people learn in certain ways and why are different people suffer. They're not suffer, that's the wrong word. I apologise for that one. Have troubles interacting with others and how that affects them. And one of the things that kind of came up in my research was to do with cyberbullying and children and people in general with special educational needs and disabilities, where it's kind of noted that really people don't necessarily consider them to be at a higher risk, but the reality is they are at higher risk of being bullied on the internet, just as they are in a normal setting. So what I'm really asking is if you have just a spare 5 minutes, I have a survey that I'm doing at the moment for anyone who is diagnosed with or considers themselves to have a special educational needs such as dyslexia, autism, ADHD, anything like that. And also is experiencing cyberbullying, or maybe they're not, but they just want to make their point. If they could just complete a quick survey, like say 5 minutes, and it just measures self-esteem and sort of effects of cyberbullying. The survey, I think Anne is going to paste it into the comments or something. I'm not 100% sure how that's going to happen.
Once this is done, what I'm going to be doing is putting in the comments, and then, as I said, you're taking a clip out of this tomorrow and putting it up there so people can see it and can contact you directly about it.
That's perfect.
But it's an absolutely fascinating study to do, because we've had little chats, haven't we, in the background about about what's going on. But anything else that you want to say, Joanne?
Well, like I say, I've got a child who's diagnosed with autism. I have another child who is suspected, and then my youngest has actually got a genetic deletion, and suspected autism. So I've got quite a broad knowledge of that field.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, I've got it from professional because prior I was working as a teaching assistant in special educational needs as well. So if anybody has any questions, I'm quite happy to try and bridge that. But it's quite fascinating to find out how other people sort of.
This is what I find fascinating, because that's what I wanted. I wanted to start getting people talking, who are actually from all directions involved in it. Because what I don't like as well, I don't know about you, Joanna or Paula, but I don't like it when you get this cooey attitude that people do. This autism. I hate that. I hate it. I say that's not helping. That's not helping. Going
on the planet. They're the most talented individuals on the planet.
Yeah,
they really are.
Well,
they're up to the hilt.
I used to always say, right, and I remember I was training at one point in counselling, and they kept on going on. You always seem to have this ideal person. And I said, who is this ideal person that is healthy in mind, healthy in everything? I said, why? I said, can anyone find this? And I remember the teacher turned around and said, you're right. She said, it doesn't exist, this ideal person. So I said, we're basing our ideal human being on someone that can't exist.
It doesn't exist.
I know.
Yeah, I agree.
Hi, Graham.
I think my personal view is that we all, in some way, have some sort of, if you could define it as autism. It's just that in some, it's very, very slight. And in others like me, you don't notice it until something happens that gives a trigger off. And very few people, as say, have twigged, they've said, are you on the spectrum with me? Because they've realized that a response I've given hasn't been, I hate the word, but it's the only one you can use, not what you expect someone to do. It could be like, but that's my views anyway. So Graham, do you want to introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah. Well, I'm just new to all this. My son, baby Graham, he's 4 now. He was diagnosed just after his 3rd birthday, but obviously we always knew he does a lot of the main signs of autism. He stims quite a bit. He's not he's a bit of a weird one, Graham, because mainly with autism, not all cases, but a lot of the cases that the public I see, it's the meltdowns that you see. It's the kids that are kicking off. Graham doesn't do that. He's on the spectrum where the emotion he can't deal with is happiness, so he's just happy all of the time. Just constantly. He doesn't cry, he doesn't kick off, he doesn't have the meltdowns. I mean, he doesn't like the word no, like any child, but he's so fast you can just distract him straight away from that thought process, and he just crack on with something else. He's so self-contained. He's very socially inept. He works by himself. It's took a long time to get the interaction level we've got now. I mean, me and his mum are together, so it's a lot of the time it's I'm just going off what my stuff is. With progression with him, but Graham's a lot like that. He's just it's a different spectrum altogether, and I don't think people see enough of that side of it either. It's always autism. Oh God, the meltdowns. And I'll tell you what else that I'm really, really going to push for if this does get big for Graham. I'm going to push for having these big theme parks and big play areas. They should have a quiet place, like a dark spot, where these kids can go to somewhere where they're naturally, normally able to calm down in the house. Like Graham's got areas of the house that are lighted differently and blah, blah, blah. There should be a generic place where you can put Bluetooth to whatever music you want and dim the lights and have a quiet area out the way of public. You can bring the child out of that meltdown state. I don't think they accommodate for it, and they should.
Oh, no, they don't.
I agree.
And it's like one thing, not the way you say about meltdowns. I mean, I was one, if you saw me as a child, I was one of the most easy to control children going. I mean, it was literally.
Really, Anne?
Oh, you wouldn't believe it, I'm telling you. That's why the career I went into, I got in so well on it.
The heart, because you don't used to speak the mind.
But now I do. But yeah, I was that malleable. That's why when I was put as a child into ballet, I had soaked it all because I'd just do. And in those days, especially, you're talking about
you've got me into ballet now.
Not a shout. Here we are. You're doing it again. Stop jumping in.
I know.
You're doing your old thing, right? What do we do?
I told
Just to
Graham
warn
to tell me
people.
to do this.
Here we are. I warn people now. I mute Paula now and again because she likes to jump in. She does a head of turner on me. But anyway,
Love you, Anne.
what I used to do, I'd have, which I found out ages later, was select mutism. I used to stop talking. And I used to wonder, I mean, it didn't last it only lasted until I was about 6 years old. But literally, when I think of it, it must have been crucially embarrassing for my parents or anyone around me. Someone would talk to me and that's all to get. I wouldn't talk. And it wasn't that I didn't want to talk. I just didn't. I used to get these moments where I wasn't happy. I wasn't angry. I wasn't anything. I just didn't have an emotion going through my body. And I can do that now, but I'll talk. But I can go into moments where I'm thinking, I want to almost do that, saying, am I actually alive here? Because I go numb. There's no feelings there. But yeah, people always imagine the ADHD and all that, but they don't see that you can, as you said, Graham, which is very important, that it can be different. It can be on a high all the time. And I've seen children like that who are always happy, but that can be very problematic in itself as well.
Yeah,
it can. Yeah. I'm just gonna jump in briefly because I'm gonna go off shortly because I've got to go sort the children. But my oldest is 12 now. When he was diagnosed when he was 4 with autism. But he was very much as you described, Graham, in the fact that he was like the happiest child in the world, quite happy doing what he wanted on his own in the corners. He would kind of observe all the other kids, but he was, very much for himself, if that makes sense. It was all for himself.
That's my daughter, Joanne. That's my daughter, honestly. And she goes into her room and she just isolates herself, but she's got everything. She's so happy. But I sit and talk to myself, and it's like, you want to communicate with them, you want to do girly stuff, am I right?
Yeah, well, I haven't got that problem with him anyway. I mean, he's very.
You want to do kiddie stuff, but they're like, no. He
was very loving and everything, which I know can be quite unusual. But you said something then, Anne, which just wanted me to jump in, because he also had selective mutism. So he would literally just go quiet for hours and hours and hours, and people would try and communicate with him. And unless it really was something he really wanted to do, you would not get a word out of him at all. And people kept saying, "Oh, he's got something wrong. He's really wrong. There's something not right about him." And it was really sad because he understood everything that they were saying, and he knew everything they were saying. And I used to get really frustrated, and to the point where actually he did have a meltdown because I think he'd just had enough. He used to have the odd one. When we're out and about, but normally when you're out and about, he's very kind of sedate. He has too much going on, and so he doesn't have meltdowns. He has them at home, in the home environment. But I remember on this one occasion where he'd not answered a question, and then somebody had said something behind his back, which had upset him obviously, and he just went into meltdown in the shop, and this woman threatened to take me outside. It was quite a frightful experience, actually, because apparently I'd not brought him up correctly, and he was about 5 or 6. And the manager of the shop actually was lovely and said, "No, if you've got a problem, love, you leave. There's nothing wrong with this child."
Because
I'm so sorry you went through that, Joanna.
But can you imagine
you move through it?
Can you imagine years ago, though,
you do.
You didn't have any, years ago now, there was no concept of autism or anything. So if a child acted like that, there was no sympathy. The parents were always told, "Oh, give them a smack and all this." And, cheating right, it was the parents' fault. And you think back and you think the way children, and we used to get hit, we did, in school back then. And if they were really, you couldn't control the child, they were put into these schools and they were horrible horrible. They used to stigmatise them and everything. It's thankfully it's changed now. It's changing
It's
now.
changed a bit, but it hasn't changed all that much in a lot
Not
of
in
ways.
society, it hasn't.
No, it
And
hasn't. Society's not like that at all, because I think even now they will just jump the gun and say, no, it's the parents' fault. Go and do a parenting class.
Well,
that's
an interesting question to put to Graham and Paul. Like, what do you think is the attitude of people in the public domain now when they see something?
I'll let Graham go first because I talk too much.
Well, that's my whole take on this channel, is because touching on what you were saying there, John, right? We didn't have so much the school saying that he was a bad kid. What we did have was why I've got the channel as non-verbal, not stupid. There's a reason behind it. Is because they said, I mean, if you ever met Graham or you see him, or you will see him on the videos as I'm getting better than that, he stims 90% of the day. Everything is so overpowered from him. He's constantly like this. It's what he does.
Yeah.
So we had the school saying he's deaf. That was one of the funniest things. It was like, he's deaf. He's clearly not deaf. So,
but do all babies not get hearing tests when they're younger? When they're born?
He had 4. I had to take him 4 times because we're saying he's not autistic. He's deaf. Because they were saying,
we had 3.
I still now would stand behind Graham and go, Graham, and he'll just not, but I can go, Peppa Pig, and he'll turn, or I can go, and he'll turn, because them words for him means something positive, whereas Graham, he's got no attachment. You've got to understand, non-verbal doesn't mean not stupid. He understands every single thing that's said to him. Do you know what I mean? He just can't, with non-verbal, it's not so much the can't speak, because Graham can now, it's the can't context the words.
Do you know what? My daughter's exact same, Graham.
With Graham, he does a lot of copy and paste, which is one of the things I want to showcase on his channel, because a lot of parents, I didn't have any autism in the family. I've had nothing to do with autism until baby Graham was born, and it was just there, and that was it. So everything I've learned with Graham is stuff that is literally come out of interacting with him or trying new things. I went through nearly a year of learning Makaton, and he doesn't respond to it at all.
No, my youngest is the same.
He does copy and paste. So, for instance, I will capture it because he does it a lot. I'm trying to get it at the minute, but trying to catch him at the right moment without walking about with the camera on his face all day is hard. He'll use copy and paste. So, for instance, we want a drink. He'll come up and he'll say, "My daddy," and that's off his cartoon. Then he'll get me finger. He'll take us to the juice, and then I'll stand there. "What do you want? Tell dad what you want." And he can't say, "I want a drink," or "Can you fill me drink," or "Can I have juice?" Which he knows what all of them mean. It's because in his head, that's not the context. So what he does is he'll use something he's heard on his games or something. So what he'd say is he'll go, "I know, there it is," and then he'll point at it. So that's him saying, and so it's not so much non-verbal means that they're mute. They're just they can't context. That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
If he could just say things word for word for word, like "daddy, bottle, juice," he would. But he also knows that that's not the thought process or how he communicates. So trying to bridge that is what I want to showcase publicly, is not so much the medical understanding, which is still really bad. You know, he's deaf, he's blind, he's this, he's that, while he's doing this. Do you know what I mean? So what's this then? Do you know what I mean? He's clearly autistic. It's one of the biggest giveaways for an autistic child is the stimming. It's one of the biggest giveaways. But publicly, with his channel, I want to try and showcase the communication gaps that I've bridged with them, so that other parents who've got a non-verbal can try them and hopefully bridge that gap, because mine and Graham's relationship is so tight now that I can communicate with them on a relatively decent basis compared to what it is with people who can't. He's totally staunch. He's just selectively mute, as you would say, just won't interact. But with me, I can have a full day of conversation with them in them ways, but it's copy and paste, a lot of it.
And do you have a lot of sensory issues, out of curiosity? Because I know just as I said before, I've studied sensory processing and things, but both of my boys, one that's suspected and one that has been diagnosed, both have massive sensory. They like to be in light and they like music. Music's one of my youngest child, who is just coming up for 4. If he is having any issues and you put his favourite songs on, he's perfect.
Again, with Graham, he's more of a weird one. He doesn't go off routine, which is normally a massively autistic thing, is that the routine is hugely important. Graham doesn't care whatsoever for or routine at all. With him, it's the sensory stuff is, he used to always like being fed stuff, so it was great. I got dinners in him, everything I wanted in him, he was just taking. Now, I've got to cook his toast in a certain shape. His pizza's got to be a certain shape. He'll only eat finger food, and he'll look at it first and see if he likes the look of it. Then he'll pick it up and analyze it. Then he smells it, and then he'll taste it if it gets that far. And the amount of food that I used to feed him to what he'll eat now is ridiculous. At the moment, Graham lives on a diet of like, he eats all the normal stuff, but like food-wise, it's like pizza, chicken nuggets, noodles, but he won't eat noodles off a fork, he has to eat them with his hands. Stuff like that, he just won't. Sausages, like a normal sausage, he'll eat 10 sausages, no problem. But if I put chips in front of him, he'll just not eat.
My daughter really likes Willy Winkies, the frozen ones. And when I do my online shop with Iceland, I always remember a couple of years ago, I was at a local pub and the woman went, I recognise you. And I went, do you? She went, aye, you're the woman that buys the 10 pies and the 10 packs of sausages. I was like, my daughter's autistic. I was like, my daughter's autistic. So when she goes through a phase of liking something, I need to make sure I've got it in bulk.
Yeah.
Because that's all she'll eat.
Do you know what? I'm not talking about the music. I remember one interesting thing that happened to me. As I grew up surrounded by ballet, so I was surrounded by music all the time.
That's amazing, though.
And had to move with the music and all that. But I remember as I grew older, you get your favourite bits of music, and one of them, Stravinsky, Le Sacre de Printemps, or The Rite of Spring, which is very heavy going. And whenever I felt like I was sort of, my mind was flying away, and I thought, I've got to get ready for a performance here, and you have to get back down to earth. You can't have your mind up there. You've got to be able to concentrate before you get on the stage. I used to always put that on and listen to it, and it would bring me back down to earth and ground me straight away. And it wasn't until I was talking to one of the musicians from out of the violinist from out of the orchestra, and said, "That's so funny," she said, "because what's it about? What's that ballet about?" And I said, "About a ritual the earth, a sacrifice to the earth, and all this business." And she said, "Yeah." And she said, "You're saying that's grounding you?" And so I said, "Yeah." She said, "And it's all about the earth." She said, "Isn't that weird?" She said, I think music is one of the most important things for humans and autistic people, anyone. If you can learn to relate from a young age to music, wow, it runs your emotions. Because you imagine a ballet without the music, it would be so boring. Yeah, put the music with it and you've got magic. Absolute magic that can make you cry, whatever. So yeah, I agree with that. I can see why music, Graham, would be very important too.
Yeah, I think I know that. Yeah, I know that you were saying that your children don't eat much. I don't have that problem, thankfully. That isn't one that we have. Yeah, thankfully, both of my children, like I say, my 12-year-old is diagnosed. My nearly 4-year-old is not yet. They won't assess him until he's 4. But both of those will eat any foods that I put in front of them, strong or not. The youngest does prefer a strong flavour.
So I'm just looking at the comments. Sorry, carry on, Joanne. Sorry, been rude. Sorry.
No, it's fine. The youngest prefers strong flavours, but he will eat anything. So I'm quite lucky on that. But sensory-wise, he's very much, as I say, music is really important for him. He can't get through the day without music. It helps him sleep. He can't go to sleep without it. And if he is having a bit of a meltdown or he's got too tired, then the music is the only thing that will help him sit down, because he's on the go constantly, my youngest. And they've not put it as hyperactivity, but it really, he's constantly off. He doesn't want to sit down. Even though he has physical disabilities, he actually has a walking frame because he struggles with too much walking. Actually, it bends, his knees bend back funny angles because he's got hypermobility, which I'm assuming a lot of people with autism have, because both of mine do.
Joanne, sorry, I've just bought my daughter a wheelchair. Because short distances, even at that, it tires her out. So rather than go through the whole process, I just went on eBay, got a quick one, and that's enabled me to get it out more.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got we're quite lucky. We actually have a wheelchair services, and they've provided us with the equipment we require.
That's fantastic.
So we've been really, really lucky. Our area, we're in Leicestershire now, but our area is just amazing for that.
Fantastic.
So we're lucky. But as I say, my youngest is just getting to the point because he doesn't speak. His walking is very minimal. He has fine motor issues, and he's got a lot of other things going on, bless him. But he literally never stops giggling. Will eat everything I tell him to eat. If I put it in front of him, he'll eat it. He's absolutely fine with it. And actually, he'll eat more than my daughter, who is 10, and she's my fussy one, and she's not diagnosed with anything. They do say she has got suspected. She has got a lot of traits of what they say traits of autism now, and it has been picked up in school that she seems to be, since the pandemic. I don't know if any of you have had this, but since we've hit this COVID pandemic, my daughter has declined in a lot of ways, and is now showing more signs of autism. So she's having a lot more social issues. She's she's struggling in school a little bit more than she was before. She's now struggling with noises. She gets a lot of sensitive ear, so she's always covering her ears. And the school are now starting to suspect that there's more coming out since the pandemic. And
definitely,
I wonder how much of that is linked to the pandemic. I don't know how.
You know, this is what got me right, and I was absolutely, because I when it comes to children, I'm very, what you call it? I always want to protect children. It's always like I'm always watching if people's children are running towards the road or something like that.
You've got that kind of mother.
It's got to be like overburden. In other words, a child. Any of my friends or cousins, if their children were around me, they always said they're grown up now, and they'd say it was like there was always a pair of eyes watching where we were going. Where are you? I'm staying with me dogs. My dogs couldn't get out of my sight for a second, or I'd be, where are they? There was always something bad going to happen in my mind. But anyway, talking about the pandemic, what drove me absolutely insane with worry was these masks. Because I thought a very young child, babies and young children need to see this. They need to see a face expression, because what did they say? 90% of all communication is facial, not verbal. You pick it up on what the expressions of the person and the body movements. Yeah. So I thought this is going to have a bad effect on the development of children. If all that they're seeing is this, a pair of eyes, it's going to have a bad effect. And so I agree with you there. I wonder
if it's because as well the eye contact issue. I don't know about you guys, but my daughter can't make eye contact.
She'll do that.
I used to be like that.
We'll do that.
She looks up.
No, my dog will go like that.
Yeah, I wonder if that is why then it's kind of made it worse having those face masks, because they've had to make kind of eye contact, because that's the only bit of the face that's visible.
That's true. I'm just going to ask this, if anyone knows. Mrs. Hendricks here has said, here in the States, they will give children headphones and quiet place in school. Did they do that in the UK? I don't know, do they?
Well, depends on the school. Special school. Sorry, Joanne, on you go, Dawn. On you go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've worked in many schools. It does depend on the school. They use ear defenders usually. They will give children ear defenders. In one school that I worked in, they had an autistic child, and if he was getting to his sort of limit, they would give him a timer and put him in an outdoor, because he was very much an outdoorsy child. And there was an outdoor safe green space, which was all gardens, raised beds and things. And they would put him there with someone watching from a distance, obviously, so he wasn't on his own, with a timer. And he knew that he had a set time in that garden with his ear defenders, and he could do what he wanted. Another school that I worked in, they gave ear defenders. There wasn't a place to go for them in that school. However, if they were really struggling, TA or teacher would escort them out of the classroom to go for a little explore and do a bit of learning elsewhere. I know in my son's school they don't have it, but I will say for your video, my oldest son struggles with noise, and we've just invested in some earplugs. They were from a company called Flare Audio, which is online. Not plugging here because they're nothing to do with me, but they go inside the ear. They're completely discreet, and they don't take away the sound of the main focus in the room, but they remove some of the background noise. But he's found that they have actually made a massive difference in the classroom environment.
Could you give Anne the link, Joanne, for them? Could you give Anne the link for that? That's amazing.
Yeah, of course I can.
And also, have any of you ever heard of Temple Grandin?
No.
Yes. Yeah, I've studied her.
And look up Temple Grandin on YouTube. This woman is phenomenal. She had autism. Have you watched the film, Joanne?
I haven't watched the film yet. No, I haven't got around to that.
You can actually watch the film on YouTube as well. And this woman's in her 70s now, and she's had autism. And I've watched our stage shows on YouTube, and you get all the parents kind of crying out for answers, you know, and they're like, what will we do with this and what will we do with that? And our first answer always is, what is your child good at? Focus on that.
That's
Focus
exactly
on that.
my point.
That woman learned how to design cattle fields and everything in America.
Yeah. Oh, I think I know what you mean. I think I know.
She was in college, and she made a built in a machine like the cattle get into, and it gave her a sense of
what is she discovered, didn't you? She worked out that the reason the cattle wouldn't go in was because it was dark, and she said you have to lighten it up. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I remember that.
That woman's amazing, Anne. Oh my God.
I've seen it. She's fantastic. Just want to draw.
I've learned so much about her than I have any support worker.
I just want to draw attention to the Mark. She's made an interesting point here, which I quickly want to mention. Then I want Graham to come in because he's been too quiet there. Mark says, I'm 41, currently being tested for autism. Along with my 16-year-old, a lot gets hidden or ignored. Now, Dawn, that's a very important statement you've made there, because I got told ages ago, that a lot of the time they will not diagnose people with autism because they know that they're in the system then and they'll cost money to provide for. And that's why they're reluctant. And I've seen a child, that happened to one of my neighbours, definitely their daughter was, nearly every classic sign that she had some form, she was on the spectrum. And I'm not talking about lightly on the spectrum or high up on the spectrum. And could they get a diagnosis for it? No, they couldn't. So that's a very important point.
Really is. I've actually met with someone today, just very quickly here, met with someone today, and her child has clearly got autism. Clearly. He's 7. And she said to me, the school, they won't even assess him. And I said, why? And she said, because they've told me that because he's already in a special school, he doesn't need a diagnosis, because it doesn't matter anymore because he's got the facilities in the school that he needs. And she said, but surely
phone the school, the head school boards, and demand a child psychologist. That's what I did. Demand a child psychologist. Honestly, I know you won't, but don't ever give up the fight. Don't. You know your child better than anybody.
But I know he was really sort of distraught and said, well, how does that affect them when they leave school?
Exactly. We've got to think about all that. Even like high school and things like that. It's so much to worry about and think about.
Now I'm going to bring Graham in because he's getting tall. You're not talking at all, Graham. He's polite. He's too polite.
And I'm trying to be semi-quiet.
It's just because I'm listening to everybody's points and just taking in bits and bobs, because I do feel that a lot of the autism awareness, spectrum life, there's my son. I spoke to you a little bit, Anne, about my son. I don't know if you read the message I sent on Facebook about my son, but he's like a big fan of yours, but he's also in your community as well in a big way. So I understand a lot of that side of it, but a lot of YouTube channels, governing bodies, they're based around the medical side of autism and understanding the medical side of it. And I want it with Graham's channel. I want to take it away from the medical side. Let the researchers and everything else decide on what's spectrum and what's not. What I want to put out is the real stuff from like parents of autistic children or other autistic children that are on the spectrum, because just touching on what Joanne said, they can't possibly, my son's in a private nursery and he has been since he was like 2.5, and they do have a special needs section, but Graham's, like I said before, he's a rarity on the scale of where he lands with his emotional disability and his non-verbal communication, etc. There's nobody that's trained to deal with that situation that's just in a school. They need to be brought in, and Portage is one of the companies that we've brought, like the support we've got, and that's communication based, and they've tried. It was really them who worked out that he's a copy and paste talker, which is just my name for it. I don't know what the medical term is, but I call it copy and paste because essentially that's what he's doing. Do you know what I mean? You'll get a sentence, you'll watch, like there's a video I put up a year ago, he runs around my table and sitting. And what's important about that, yes, it's funny, and I laugh all the way through the video because I just laugh at him all the time, so this stuff is so funny. But what's important about that, right, is that although he's non-verbal, again, going back to the not stupid, he's watching that episode and he's listening to the words being said at a normal speed, not slowed down for his benefit or simplified. It's said the way any other child would hear it, and he totally understands what's going on because he rewinds it back to the exact same spot every time for the ready, steady, go, for the running around the table. And he knows how long it lasts, and he just rewinds it straight back to the exact same place every time. And that's the parts of autism that's the beautiful part that people don't get to see. It's
called, just so you know, so you have got the medical term, it's called echolalia. That's what they call it in the medical profession. It's called echolalia, and it's basically repeating words or phrases that they have heard elsewhere in a new context. So they'll repeat it over and over again, and they call it echolalia.
I prefer copy and paste.
I prefer copy and paste. I don't like medical model.
No,
I prefer the social model.
It's like, for instance, when I was out not long ago with a friend who's got a child, non-autistic, not at all, but I had been with us. And there was another family just over, and they were a foreign family, and they must have had a child that was autistic, and this child was having a meltdown. And everybody backed away and ended up as like a wall of people all talking and looking and blah, blah, right? And just the whole normality of what people think the best option to do when a parent's dealing with a situation like that, in autism especially, is the exact opposite of what we need. Now, what they should have done was created a barrier between the public and them. Maybe it's a couple of lads, a couple of families, whatever. Just turn that back to them and just, create a solid wall so that they could deal with the child without the child noticing that the pressure's on them, the limelight's on them, people are pointing, talking, looking, because they're reading everybody's opinions of them without even hearing what they're saying, because like Anne said, it's all facial expressions, and Graham works a lot on that. And that's another thing I want to try and turn the tide of people stop backing off and looking at it as like, oh my God, getting it dealt with as fast and as easy and as possible for the parent and the child, so that the meltdown, because it's really frustrating for the kids. Graham doesn't have it, but he has it on the opposite side of things. Like you were saying, it's still a 24-hour job when I've got him, because the thing with him being so happy and so naive and innocent is that he's got no fear. So I've got to watch him all the time, because he doesn't know what getting hurt is. He doesn't know what a nasty person is. He doesn't know what's dangerous, because to him everything's brand new. He wakes up every morning. It's almost like, wow, I've never seen this before. That's literally how he looks and acts. It's like, wow, I'm just, you know what I mean? He's just so overloaded with happiness, but it comes with that is it's just as much a job as it is for the kids that are on a lower spectrum or a different side of the spectrum. And I want to bring light to that with Graham's channel. That's what my point is so parents can go and just watch Graham's interaction with us and maybe try them methods, because the no medical told me about that. No medical professional I've ever spoken to who's ever said in communication, try this. And I'm sure Graham's not the only person that uses that copy and paste method. So as to why I wasn't told about it, to explore it, we've had to fight it out myself. And I think there'll be a lot of parents out there that have just landed with an autistic child. Not everybody's family's perfect, let's be honest. They've got their own issues, everything else. And what I don't want is parents closing down and keeping their kids indoors because of fear of not knowing how to deal with things. The public should be that aware of autism now. It's 1 in 5 people, I believe, or the statistics might even be more now.
Guess what, Graham? I'm 1 of the 5.
Exactly, do you know what I mean? It should be an
My
automatic.
daughter won't go outside apart for today, and I won't force her. The last time, it was just before Christmas, the support workers and somebody for her school came in and tried to get her to go to school, and she was literally, her back was going up the wall, and she was freaking out, and she was like, "Mum, Mum," and she was throwing stuff and taking a tantrum, and I was like, "Just get her room, just go. You can't make her go to," because like that person had commented and said that lovely lady commented and said about would you have like resources and stuff in our country. I was expected to force my daughter to go to school for them to let her sleep in a tent in the classroom. And I was like, no, I'm not going to get her in a distressed state to then throw her out the door and then have her stressed all day, but be sleeping in the classrougm. I'd rather be sleeping in the comfort of her own home.
That's the other thing as well. I don't want it to become a situation where, although I'm going to push for having these like maybe these pop-up situations like you've been talking. I think at school it should be an issue, but in like theme parks and big public areas, they should definitely have some kind of pop-up or some trailer or something where you can take them. But the essential thing is I don't want it to end up where it's like dependent upon, because realistically what we're trying to do, or what my aim with Graham is, I want him to live a full and normal as possible life. But that comes with educating the people around him, because it's people around him that's going to cause him the unhappiness and the hurt in the future.
Yeah,
this is an important thing. This important thing you said.
It's going to be this society.
And how did you feel
just let's say this. Graham's just anticipates what I was going to say towards the end of this, and that is we'll have to have a talk about how you prepare children for, or as they're grown up, for the world. Because I tell you, the problem you have, Graham, with that scenario is the world may not be willing to always adapt to someone else. And there are situations, there are trained thoughts, because I had this age ago, they had 2 people who were living together who were autistic. And oh God, no, I'm getting that wrong. God, hell, I got that wrong. I just realised they weren't autistic.
Oh my God, there's going to be a post about you tomorrow.
No, it was something else. I just realised when I went to speak about it. No, what it was? It was 2 people who were God, this sounds psychopaths, right? But I mean, they had no empathy for anyone. But they actually trained themselves to be able to, and it was a fascinating documentary about them. They trained themselves to mimic empathy so that they could go around and no one would ever know.
Wow.
But these were people who had a psychopathic problem that was seriously, they had no, I'm not talking about killers or anything like that, but they had no empathy. But they actually started mimicking people. So what I want to do, because I'll start winding this down soon, but what I want to talk about next is actually how you get children as they're grown up to fit into the world, in case the world just doesn't want to always fit in with them or around them. And that's the issue I have, because I found that happened when I was in, let's say you want to go into profession, let's say ballet, because that's what I can talk about. I mean, stressful.
Did you ever do ballet, Anne?
Yeah.
Did you ever do it? Yeah.
That was my job until I was 24. But the thing is,
no, I just knew that. I knew she was fascinating, but I knew there was a lot more to learn.
The thing about it is that I had to, no matter whether I had any issues or problems with any, and the way certain problems, like I say, sounds were, I just had to learn, and I did learn over the years to just like, as I was doing it, and say, there's the stage. I've got to get on there now. I've got to do this. I've got to make this work and do that. So we'll talk. But again, I'm high functioning. If I was, let's say, low down on the spectrum, I wouldn't be able to control myself like that. But would everybody be interested, because I have to close this down in a minute, would everyone be interested next time we come on talking about how we approach the fact that the world might not adapt to children?
Especially in different like different, especially in different stages of age, because you know it's like games get younger children. My daughter's 11. Joanna, what age is your autistic child?
He's 12, but my other one who's not diagnosed is nearly 4.
See, there's different ages, Anne, so this would be an amazing topic to continue.
Just to touch on it, a couple of people in the comments have recognised this, I think, but I was in the music scene for a long, long time in the dance side of things anyway. But I've got quite a big following on Facebook, but not the other platforms. So I think realistically, as mad as it sounds, it's getting influential people to be accepting and supportive of autism and getting them to show people how they should go on. Because let's be honest, essentially, especially YouTube and life in general, people look up to people that they follow, they're interested in. So if then people are all plugging the same thing, then it becomes the narrative, and then people begin that way. Like it's become the narrative to be the phone holder and get it on video and capture this. That needs to stop. Do you know what I mean? That needs to stop. Like I've seen people badly hurt, people stood there with cameras. I've worked in nightclubs where people have passed out and they've been, convulsing, etc. And people be like that. And that's
they will too.
For me, as a performer on a stage, it's so off-putting. It's so off-putting when you just see people crowding around people and not helping them. It's like, I actually just want to cut the set short.
No, it's so good.
And that kind of links into my study.
So we get that.
Into my study in a way.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close it down now because I've got to appear on Craig's channel now. He'll just to start. So no Craig, video Craig's. I'm honest.
Well, tell him not to say nothing about me because I'm best pals with his pal, Lee Dobson for Bad Word Podcast.
Do you know what? It's just like a gob on a stick, isn't it? It's a gob on a stick, isn't it, Paula? That's what I'm going to change to gob on a stick. And
do you know what? See, tomorrow I'm going to put a copyright complaint into Anne.
Anyway, so what I'll do is
love you, honestly.
Thank you. So thank you.
No, you're amazing.
Called on now. As I say, I'll make this a weekly thing. So hopefully next Tuesday if everyone's available. And people in the chat, don't worry, everyone's got a chance to come in and talk about this. Pollyanna, you sound very interesting, and other people do, to have a talk about this. So until next time, my lovelies, thank you very much. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you
for allowing me to come in. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, my lovelies.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Bye.